My own family took me to court for my inheritance. The truth shocked everyone. My name is Andrew. I'm 32 years old. All my life I've tried to stand on my own feet. I work as an engineer for a construction company. I own a modest apartment that I paid off over the course of nearly a decade, and I pride myself on never having to ask anyone for handouts. My life isn't perfect, but at least I can say it's mine. My father, Alexander, passed away last spring. His death hit me hard. We didn't always see eye to eye. He was strict, demanding, sometimes even cold. But he was also fair. He believed in hard work and self-reliance, and he built everything he had with his own hands. One thing he never tolerated was laziness. That's why he often butted heads with my younger sister, Olivia. She's 25 now, but she's never held down a proper job. She spends most of her time at home, sometimes taking on odd jobs, but mostly relying on our mother to cover her expenses. When Dad passed, he left behind a 2-bedroom apartment in the city center, a small countryside house with some land, and a decent sum of savings in the bank. He wasn't a millionaire, but what he had was valuable. And most importantly, he left a will. In that will, he clearly stated, everything should be divided equally among his 3 heirs, my mother, my sister, and me. To me, that sounded fair. Each of us would get a third. No room for arguments, right? At least, that's what I thought. But shortly after the funeral, my mother started hinting that things should be different. She'd say things like, Olivia is still young. She needs more help to get started in life. Or you're a man. Andrew, you can make your own way. At first, I brushed it off as just her worrying too much about my sister. But then her tone shifted. She started talking about me giving up part of my share. For the sake of family peace. I didn't want to fight, so I just stayed quiet. Maybe if I ignored it, it would pass. I was wrong. 1 month later, an official letter arrived at my apartment. It was from a lawyer representing my mother and sister. They were demanding that I agree to a redistribution of the inheritance, 80%, to them, and only 20% to me. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, staring at that letter like it was written in another language. My hands were shaking. How could my own mother do this to me? I wasn't some stranger. I wasn't an outsider. I was her son. That night, I called my childhood friend, Igor, who happens to be a lawyer. I explained everything, almost shouting into the phone from how angry I was. He listened calmly and then said, Andrew, don't panic. This is a classic pressure tactic. They're hoping you'll give in because you don't want conflict. But legally, they don't have a leg to stand on. The will is clear. Each of you gets 1/3. Period. His words calmed me down, at least a little. But the betrayal still burned inside me. This wasn't just about money or property. This was about respect, about dignity, about the fact that my own family was willing to cast me aside, as if I was worth nothing. The next day, I went to the notary's office and filed the necessary documents to formally open the inheritance case. I refused to sign any agreements my mother's lawyer had drafted. From that moment on, it was official. I was going to fight for what was rightfully mine. Of course, my mother didn't take it well. She started guilt-tripping me over the phone. How dare you oppose your own mother, after everything I've done for you? Do you want people to think you're an ungrateful son? My sister stayed mostly quiet, but I could tell she was siding with Mom. She always did. But deep down, I knew what this was really about. My mother wasn't fighting for Olivia. She was fighting for control. She wanted to decide who deserved what, no matter what Dad's will said. And I couldn't let her win. The following weeks felt like living under siege. Every day brought a new kind of pressure. First, my mother kept calling. Sometimes she'd cry on the phone, accusing me of tearing the family apart. Other times, her tone would turn cold, even threatening. If you push this, you'll regret it. Don't forget, I know things about you I could use. What things? That I struggled with debt in my 20s? That I wasn't always the perfect son. I wasn't afraid of the truth. What hurt was how low she was willing to sink to scare me into giving up. Olivia, my sister, wasn't as confrontational. She came to see me one evening, knocking on my door with a hesitant look. I almost didn't let her in, but curiosity got the better of me. Andrew, she said softly, Mom's only doing this because she worries about me. You know I don't have much. You already have your own place, a good job. I stared at her. She looked fragile, as if she wanted me to feel sorry for her. For a moment, I almost did. But then anger surged back. Liv, I said, you've had every chance to build your own life. I worked my ass off to pay for my apartment. I didn't get any handouts. You could have done the same. Her eyes filled with tears. So you want me homeless? Is that it? That's not what I said. You'll still get a third. Dad wanted it that way. Why should you get more just because you never lifted a finger? She had no answer. She just cried quietly, then left. I closed the door behind her and leaned against it, exhausted. My own sister had become a stranger to me. Meanwhile, Igor, my lawyer friend, urged me to stay focused. We began gathering documents, the will, property evaluations, bank statements. He insisted on hiring an independent appraiser to assess the value of the apartment and the country house. When my mother found out, she exploded. She called me, screaming, "Why are you dragging outsiders into this? Do you want to humiliate us in front of the whole city?" "No, Mom," I replied firmly. "I want everything to be transparent." That's what Dad would have wanted. There was a long pause on the other end. Then she hissed, "Your father never understood family, and neither do you." She hung up before I could respond. The appraisal revealed something interesting. The countryside house was in much worse condition than I thought. The roof needed repairs, the plumbing was outdated, and the land hadn't been maintained properly. In contrast, the city apartment had appreciated significantly in value. Igor explained, "They'll probably fight to keep the apartment. They might try to stick you with the house, claiming it's fair. But legally, you can demand either a sale and split of proceeds, or you can negotiate to buy them out. The key is, they can't just take 80%. Still, the whole thing weighed on me heavily. At work, I found myself distracted, making mistakes I normally wouldn't. My boss noticed and pulled me aside. "Andrew, is something going on? You're not yourself." I hesitated, but eventually told him the truth. To my surprise, he nodded knowingly. Families and money never mix well. My brother and I didn't speak for 10 years after my father died. Just, don't lose yourself in this fight. Remember who you are. His words stayed with me. One night, I dug through an old box of my father's papers. Inside, I found receipts, letters, and notes he'd kept over the years. Among them was something that struck me, a handwritten letter addressed to me. It wasn't long, but in it he wrote, "Andrew, I know you and I have not always understood each other, but I've watched how hard you've worked, how you never asked for what you didn't earn. That's why I made my will the way I did, because fairness matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I read those words over and over until my hands trembled. It was like Dad was still speaking to me, giving me strength. The first court summons came 2 weeks later. My mother and Olivia were officially suing to challenge the distribution of the inheritance, arguing that I should receive a smaller share because I was already financially stable. It felt surreal, seeing my own family's names on a legal document against me. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I walked around my apartment, staring at the city lights outside, wondering how it had come to this. All I wanted was peace. But peace wasn't possible anymore. This wasn't just about property. It was about respect, about my father's memory, and about not letting myself be bullied into surrendering what was rightfully mine. I promised myself I would fight to the end. The courthouse smelled of dust and old wood polish. As I walked through its heavy doors, I felt like I was stepping into a different world, one where truth was buried under arguments, and family ties were nothing more than evidence to be twisted. I spotted them immediately. My mother sat stiffly in the hallway, dressed in dark clothes, her face set in stone. Beside her, Olivia fidgeted nervously, clutching a handbag as if it were a lifeline. Between them sat their lawyer, a man in a perfectly tailored suit who looked at me like I was nothing more than an obstacle to bulldoze. I nodded politely. My mother turned her head away. Igor arrived a few minutes later, carrying a folder stuffed with documents. He patted me on the shoulder. "Remember, Andrew, we don't need to prove anything extraordinary. We just need to show that your father's will is valid and clear. Let them try to twist the story. The law is on our side." We were called in. The judge, a middle-aged woman with sharp eyes, asked us all to sit. The proceedings began with the opposing lawyer standing confidently, his voice loud and theatrical. "Your Honor, this case is not merely about dividing property. It is about fairness. My clients, a mother who devoted her life to this family and a daughter who has yet to establish herself in the world, are at risk of losing stability because of one man's rigid interpretation of a will. We believe it is unjust for Mr. Andrew Ivanov to claim an equal share when he already enjoys financial independence, while his sister and mother face hardship." I clenched my fist. That wasn't just bending the truth. It was painting me as some greedy villain. Igor stood, calm, steady, his words cut through the lawyer's performance. "Your Honor, the deceased, Alexander Ivanov, left behind a legally binding will. He was of sound mind, and his instructions were simple. All assets are to be divided equally among the 3 heirs. My client, Andrew, is not asking for anything beyond what his father clearly intended. To question the fairness of that will is to question the very foundation of his final wishes. The judge scribbled notes, occasionally glancing at each of us. Then came the part one dreaded, personal testimonies. My mother went first. She sat straight back, her voice trembling with just enough emotion to sound convincing. I raised my children on my own for years while my husband worked long hours. I supported Olivia through her struggles. Andrew has always been distant, unwilling to help. Now he wants to take what little security we have. If the property is split equally, Olivia will not survive. She has no stable job, no home of her own. Is it fair for my son, who already has everything, to take more from us? Her words cut deep, not because they were true, but because they came from my mother's mouth. When it was my turn, I stood, my palms sweating. Your Honor, I began, trying to keep my voice steady. I respected my father. I didn't always agree with him, but I respected him. He worked hard for what he had, and he made his wishes clear. He wanted fairness. He wanted equality. I have never asked for more than what is mine by right. I'm not the one trying to take extra. I'm not the one trying to rewrite his will. I just want what my father intended. For a moment, the courtroom was silent. Then Olivia took the stand. She looked so small, her voice wavering. I don't know how to live on my own. I don't have much. Andrew doesn't need this like I do. He's always been the strong one, the one who could stand on his feet. I just wish he would help me the way Dad would have wanted. I wanted to shout, Dad never wanted this. He warned me about this very thing, but I bit my tongue. Losing my temper would only help them. After hours of arguments and documents being read aloud, the judge adjourned the hearing. The court will review the evidence and schedule the next session. Until then, no agreements are to be made outside of legal proceedings. We filed out. My mother brushed past me without a word. Olivia gave me a fleeting, almost apologetic look, but quickly followed her. Igor muttered, they're playing on emotions. But emotion doesn't win cases, facts do. Stay strong. I nodded, but inside I felt like a rope pulled to its breaking point. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through my apartment, staring at the family photos I'd kept boxed up after Dad's death. One in particular caught my eye, a picture of me as a kid, sitting on Dad's shoulders, both of us smiling. I picked it up and whispered, I won't let you down, Dad. I'll fight for what you wanted. But as I said the words, I realized something terrifying. No matter who won, the family I once knew was already gone. The second hearing came faster than I expected. By then, weeks of pressure had worn me down. I wasn't sleeping well, I barely ate, and at work I was constantly distracted. But I told myself, if I collapse now, they'll win. When I walked into the courtroom that morning, I noticed something different. My mother wasn't trying to look fragile anymore. She was dressed sharply, her chin held high, her eyes cold. Olivia sat beside her, head lowered, avoiding my gaze. Their lawyer, smug as ever, carried a stack of new documents. Igor leaned toward me. Don't panic. They're probably trying to surprise us. It doesn't mean they've got anything solid. The session began with their lawyer dramatically waving a folder. Your Honor, we have uncovered new evidence. That proves Mr. Andrew Ivanov was already financially supported by his father during his lifetime. Therefore, it is only just that his share of the inheritance be reduced. We submit bank records, showing that significant sums of money were transferred to his account over the years. My stomach dropped. What? Igor immediately stood. We request to review these documents before any conclusions are drawn. The judge agreed. Copies were handed over. I scanned them quickly. My name was there, attached to transfers from my father's account. But something was wrong. These aren't mine, I whispered. I never received this money. Igor nodded. We'll check the account details later. Don't worry, if they're falsified, we'll expose it. But my mother's voice rang out, sharp and merciless. You see, Your Honor, my son has already taken his share in secret. He doesn't deserve more. He's greedy. He's always been greedy. Her words stabbed deeper than any blade. I wanted to scream at her, to ask how she could lie so easily. But I forced myself to stay silent. Losing control would only play into their hands. The hearing dragged on. Igor managed to convince the judge to allow time for a financial expert to analyze the supposed evidence, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt was planted. Outside the courtroom, I confronted my mother. How could you do this? You know I never took a cent. She looked at me with cold disdain. You've always been ungrateful. Your father spoiled you, and now you want to rob your own sister. Don't pretend you're innocent. For a moment, I saw something flicker in her eyes. Guilt, maybe? But it vanished as quickly as it appeared. She turned and walked away. Olivia lingered behind, biting her lip. I grabbed her arm gently. Liv, look at me. You know this isn't true. You know, I never took Dad's money. She wouldn't meet my eyes. I don't know what to believe anymore. Mom says, stop listening to Mom for once. I snapped. My voice cracked with desperation. You were there, Olivia. You saw me working day and night to pay off my apartment. Do you really think Dad was secretly handing me thousands of dollars? Her lips trembled. For a second, I thought she might break. But then she shook her head, pulled free, and hurried after Mom. I stood there, feeling like I had just lost her all over again. That evening, Igor and I went through every page of those records. It didn't take him long to spot the inconsistencies. See here. He pointed at the account numbers. These transfers don't match your bank details. Someone doctored these documents. Sloppy work, actually. But to the untrained eye, it looks convincing. My anger boiled. So they forged evidence. My own family. My own mother. Igor placed a hand on my shoulder. We'll expose it. The court doesn't tolerate falsification. If we prove this, their case will fall apart. I nodded, but my chest felt heavy. It wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about realizing how far they were willing to go. They weren't just trying to guilt me or pressure me. They were willing to lie, to fabricate, to destroy me if it meant getting what they wanted. 2 days later, Igor called with news. The expert analysis confirmed what we suspected. The documents they submitted are fake. The judge will see this in the next session. Andrew, this could turn the tide completely. Relief washed over me, but only for a moment, because beneath it all was still that gnawing question. What kind of family does this to one of their own? That night, I found myself pacing my apartment, staring at the letter my father had written me, the one where he said he respected my hard work. I gripped it tightly, whispering, I'm not letting them ruin your memory. Not like this. But deep down, I knew the cost was already too high. Even if I won in court, I was losing my family piece by piece. And there was no going back. The final hearing arrived on a gray, rainy morning. The courthouse steps were slick with water, and I slipped once on my way up. Somehow, it felt fitting, like the universe was reminding me that the ground beneath my feet wasn't stable anymore. Inside, the courtroom was packed. My mother sat rigid as stone, her eyes narrowed. Olivia looked pale, almost ghost-like. Their lawyer still wore that smug expression, though I wondered if he realized how fragile his case had become. Igor leaned close and whispered, stay calm. The expert's report will speak louder than any of us. The proceedings began. The judge reviewed the evidence, the will, the property appraisals, the testimonies. Then she turned to the financial documents my mother's lawyer had submitted. Our independent expert has concluded that these documents contain falsified account numbers and signatures. They are not valid evidence. Furthermore, the attempt to introduce such documents raises serious concerns about the credibility of the plaintiff's case. The courtroom erupted into murmurs. My heart pounded so hard I thought everyone could hear it. My mother's lawyer jumped to his feet, sputtering, Your Honor, this must be some kind of mistake. The judge cut him off sharply. Enough. The court does not tolerate forgery. Any further attempts at misrepresentation will have consequences. I glanced at my mother. For the first time, she looked shaken. Her mask of cold confidence cracked, if only slightly. Olivia stared down at her hands, refusing to look at me. The following weeks were strange. The estate was divided just as the judge ordered. I received my 1/3, part of the savings and partial rights to the apartment and the house. Eventually, the apartment was sold and the proceeds split 3 ways. The country house. None of us wanted it, so it sat abandoned for months. I thought victory would feel sweeter. Instead, every time I walked into my empty apartment, I felt a heaviness pressing on my chest. I had protected my father's wishes, but I had lost my family in the process. My mother stopped speaking to me completely. Olivia sent me one text months later, a single line. I hope you're happy. I wasn't. One evening, I sat on my balcony with a beer, staring at the city lights. I pulled out the letter my father had written me, the one I had clung to throughout the whole ordeal. His words echoed in my head, fairness matters. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Maybe that was enough. Maybe in the end, keeping his memory intact was worth the cost. I don't know if my family will ever heal. Maybe the damage is permanent, but I know this. I refuse to be bullied. I refuse to let lies rewrite the truth. And even if I stand alone now, at least I can look in the mirror and say I honored my father.